Hello and welcome everyone. I am Mackenzie A. Albina, and today I'm going to discuss a little bit about Socio-Cultural Theory by Vygotsky. In this module, you are expected to differentiate Piaget and Vygotsky's views on cognitive development. Understanding human behavior and development can only be understood within the social context in which they live. This module introduced Vygotsky's Socio-Cultural Theory. His theory emphasizes on the role of social interaction in the development of human cognition. Development of mental process is therefore a product of experiences people have had with others. To begin with, a little bit of background information about Vygotsky. He is known as Mozart of psychology. He was a Soviet psychologist known for his work on psychological development in children. He was born on 17 November 1896 and died on June 11, 1934. Vygotsky, known for his work such as Cultural Historical Theory of Cognitive Development, Sociocultural Perspective, Social Interaction Theory of Cognitive Development, and Co-constructivism theory. Unfortunately, the works of Vygotsky was not widely known until Stalin's death, and later on gained popularity in 1980s and 1990s as an alternative to Piaget cognitive development theory. Few differences between Piaget and Vygotsky was Piaget emphasizes cognitive development based on internal influences, while Vygotsky focused on external influences such as social interaction. Here are some Vygotsky's principles. He believed that children experience continuous development, not stages, begins at birth and ends with death, while Piaget said that development stops in adolescence. Vygotsky believed that it begins at birth and ends with death. Learning is possible before the development. Through collaborative process, some commonalities between Piaget and Vygotsky, they both believe that cognitive conflict can initiate and further development, and they both believe that a child is an active participant in his or in her own learning. Social and psychological processes are equally important and mutually influential. So let's go on to our main topic. But first of all, what is a cognition? Essentially, it is the manipulation of ideas inside our human brain, the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding throughout thought, experience, and senses. Some example of cognition is learning, and the ability or our ability to reason out through logic is a prime example of cognition also. So the second one, now once cognition has been achieved, the next aim is to have a higher order thinking, and it is a more complex than cognition. As you can see here, lower order thinking skills from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, and evaluating, and creating. And this is essentially a more complex cognition. Humans can make this skill possible because we all know that humans has large cerebral cortex makes cognition possible. But the ability to engage this capability is learned from social experience. Example, culture, according to Vygotsky. We already defined cognition and higher order thinking skills, and the next slide here will show us the method to measure this cognition, and Vygotsky set out to do this by using zone of remixal development, or the so-called ZPD. Learners' maximum potential can be reached through power of language reinforced social interaction. As you can see here in our next slide, our diagram visualizing the zone of proximal development. Here are the things you can do all on your own, and here in the last is things you can't yet do no matter how much you get support. And the CPD is attainable through the use of social interaction. So the things you can do with a bit of help with others. We can say that ZPD is cognitive potential alone. These are the things you can do with a bit of help with someone. Can't do now, can do with help, and can do now. So we already know the ZPD, but how we can fulfill the ZPD? We do that through the use of more knowledgeable other, or MKO. The more knowledgeable other is somewhat self-explanatory, and it refers to someone who has a better understanding or higher ability level than the learner with respect to a particular task or concept. It is implemented through social construction of knowledge. Means that this idea that has knowledge about something is a product of a human mind's effort, or our human's mind effort or curiosity. And to be able to share the information we already know, and we will create more knowledgeable other that will also convey the learners the way their culture interprets or respond to the world. And for example is being able to attach some meaning to something or object or even event and experience. So you are achieving more knowledgeable other. So ZPD also can be fulfilled through the use of scaffolding, means skilled assistance lent by teacher, parents, or MKO. Scaffolding consists of activities provided by an educator or more competent peer to support the student as he or she is led through the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD. So the next slide, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on how the ZPD realize. Cognitive modeling technique, which MKO speaks his or her mental thought process aloud when solving a problem so that student can hear his or her chain of the reasoning and internalizing the MKO cognitive tools for their own use. So this idea drives that problem solving isn't magic, and we are not expecting kids to come up answer directly. It's okay to struggle until problem is solved. So let's go to the next slide. Vygotsky and language. Vygotsky believes that language develops from social interaction for communication purposes. Vygotsky viewed language as man's greatest tool, means for communicating with the outside world. According to Vygotsky, language plays two critical roles in cognitive development. First, it is the main means by which adults transmit information to children. Second is language itself became a very powerful tool of intellectual adaptation. So the next slide will show speech development and cognition of a child. The first is pre-intellectual speech, where took place without intellectual activity or thinking, and it is related to something that child can see or what a child wants. Second is autonomous speech, where an invented language only understood by its inventor. Autonomous speech, limited communication. And example of it is like a secret language used by like twins or some babies. Second is naive psychology. Word-object connection. It referred to as common sense theory or folk theory, where it is the realism or human tendency to believe that what we see or what he or she see the world around us objectively. And lastly, communicative and egocentric. Communicative is the social speech or external speech most advanced, and egocentric is this is where the child thoughts and communication typically about themselves are silent verbal thinking. Speech development and cognition. Language and cognition are partners in child development. We use language to learn new ideas, to talk about our thoughts and fears and interact with those around us. Language skills and cognitive skills are related to each other. Stronger language skills mean stronger cognitive skills. So the next slide will tell us the differences of Vygotsky's views and Piaget views on cognitive development. Now, the student can become the MKO while interacting with their peers and do activities that will stretch the children's cognitive development. They will be able to establish rules of play based on previous social interaction and cultural interpretation. And as you can see that Vygotsky's social-cultural view and Piaget cognitive development view has a big difference, but they have the same goal, to develop the cognitive of a child. Socio-cultural theory is really an idea between social interaction and cultural perspective, and then the internal psychological perspective, till eventually a learner will gain cognitive development or higher order thinking skills through social interaction. ZPD needs to be attainable for each student, and the more knowledgeable other can implement this ZPD through scaffolding and cognitive modeling, and then we hope that these learners will become more knowledgeable other, which reinforces between social and psychological interaction. So that is all for today, and thank you for watching.